to talk about the database design methodology for relational databases, part of database management system course. The database design methodology for relational databases is a systematic approach for designing and implementing a relational database. It typically consists of the following steps. Determine the purpose and scope of the database. The first step in the database design process is to define the purpose of the database and determine what it will be used for. This includes identifying the types of data that will be stored in the database, the users who will be accessing the data, and the type of queries and reports that will be run against the data. Gather and organize the data. The next step is to gather and organize the data that will be stored in the database. This includes identifying the data sources, extracting the data from other sources, and organizing it in a logical structure. Create a conceptual data model. Based on the data that has been gathered and organized, the next step is to create a conceptual data model that represents the relationship between the different types of data in the database. This model is typically created using a graphical notation such as entity relationship model. Normalize the data. Once the conceptual data model has been created, the next step is to normalize the data to minimize redundancy and dependency. This involves breaking down the data into smaller, more specialized tables and establishing relationship between those tables using foreign keys. Create a logical data model. Based on the normalized data, the next step is to create a logical data model that represents the structure of the data as it will be stored in the database. This model is typically created using language such as SQL. Implement the database. The final step in the database design process is to implement the database by creating the physical tables, indexes, and other database objects based on the logical data model. This includes specifying data types, constraints, and other properties for each attribute in the tables. It is important to note that the database design process is an iterative process, and it may be necessary to go back and revise the design at any point in order to accommodate changes or modifications to the data or the requirements of the database. Thank you for watching.